What is up, everybody? Welcome to Ready Break. This is the day that we've been waiting for since the lockout began. This is the day that Major League Baseball has said this is our deadline to decide whether or not the regular season is going to be impacted. This is the day that we've been waiting for, Zach. Let's talk about the nothing that happened today.
That's exactly what it was.
But what can we really talk about? You know, I was so amped for this episode tonight, so ready to come in here and talk about the good news that we officially have a deal that Major League Baseball is going to be back, and all we get is a quote from Manfred saying, "We're working it."
Yeah.
Where do we go from here, Zach?
It's anybody's guess at this point, honestly. I did see that the owners are the rumor of some of the owners have said that they're ready and willing to miss out on a month's worth of games. And basically the idea is that the owners don't really make much money from that first month of games anyway. You know, not many people are trying to get out and get to a baseball game in April. And, you know, they're more worried about getting their playoff money, which is probably why they want to expand the playoffs as well. And I mean, it seems like that's going to be what's going to happen. Like if you had to, if gun to my head and I had to guess as to what's going to happen to the season, I would say that we're probably not going to play baseball till at May at the earliest. And from everything I've seen, there's been zero movement one way or the other. No side is going to give in just yet. So I can definitely say that we're going to miss some baseball at this point.
Yeah, I mean it's very obvious unless they reach a deal in the 11th hour to save opening day. But I think you're right. May, like Brad saying in the comments, June is probably pretty likely for a regular season start, which is terrible. You know, everybody was saying that the 2020 season had a big asterisk beside of it because they didn't play a full season. They didn't, kick it off early in the spring. They had spring training in what was it, June, July, something like that.
Yeah.
And they played a shortened season. But to your point, these owners, they're not making money in springtime as much. Yeah, they might sell out opening day, but not many people are rabid about baseball come April 20th,
Right.
April 25th, into May. Even people don't really care. It's not until it gets closer to that playoff time when people actually start to care about baseball.
Sucks.
I don't know, man.
It really sucks. And honestly, I think if they want to make this a permanent change, it might be a good thing for the future, because we've already talked about the attention span of fans, and maybe the game needs to evolve a little bit and shorten its season so that it's a bit more exciting, if you will, for people. Obviously, you and I and avid baseball fans would take a 200 game season, but that's just not the reality, and we're in the minority on that. And if this can save something, or if this can appeal to both sides to get something done, then I see no problem for me personally, with a shortened season, start in May, maybe have your spring training in April. And then you also don't have to worry about those East Coast games where it's still basically winter and they're trying to play games and they're getting snowed out and stuff, which we saw a little bit of last year. You don't have to really worry about that as much. And I think it sucks for the players more so, because then they have to wait another month to get their paycheck. But I mean, what can you do at this point? I mean, it seems like something has to give one way or the other, and it's not just gonna work itself out.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's crazy. It really does suck. We've got commenters saying that players are on their way out of the country, and it's just, this is the day that we were waiting on. to have some sort of news and for it to come and go with absolutely nothing. You know, we were talking before we came online that MLB, they should be holding press conferences every day. If they cared one iota about the fans,
Yeah.
they would let people know, hey, this is where we're at. This is what's the major sticking points. Right now, all we really know is that the players have agreed to expand the playoffs a little bit. The owners want them to continue to expand it even more because, like you hit on earlier in the episode, that's where they make the bulk of their money, and they want more money.
Yeah.
And I'm, you know, we've said for months that it's billionaires versus millionaires. And Walker Bueller came out with a tweet earlier this week that he's like, hey, it's not billionaires versus millionaires. It's owners versus employees. And he kind of put it in a perspective that makes sense. It does. And then whenever you look at it and it's like, okay, only a certain percentage of MLB players are actually millionaires. A lot of them are playing for less than that. It kind of makes a little more sense. But at the same time, if you're playing for $900,000, that's still a lot of money. That's
Right.
more than the average person gets. So
Yeah.
it's still rich people versus rich people,
Right.
no matter how you slice it.
Yeah. I do get the sentiment that it's business owners versus their workers, which that's obviously what it comes down to. The players are in a union and their bosses are
Mm-hmm.
not agreeing to, a CBA, which, yeah, I get that perspective. But league minimum is somewhere around 600K in that area. I don't know a single person that makes $600,000. So they do have a bit of a leg up as compared to a normal average Joe, if you will.
Now, I mentioned the expanded playoffs. Do you care how many teams make it to the playoffs, or do you like it the way that it was with only the 10 teams that made it?
I think if they want to do up to 14 or whatever it is, which is basically 2 extra per
Mm-hmm.
league, I'm totally fine with that. It really doesn't water it down for me a whole lot because the crappy teams are going to get found out one way or the other, whether they lose in the first round to whoever, or if they win a couple rounds and they eventually face a good team and get their asses handed to them. One way or the other, no matter what, as long as the World Series doesn't change, you're basically going to get the best teams out in at the end of it to play for the championship, I think. And if they want to make that road to get to the World Series longer, I really don't care. I'm just here to watch baseball. And I think if that incentivizes more teams to spend some money to get into that playoffs, I think that's a good idea as well, because we've got plenty of teams across MLB that, for whatever reason, don't ever want to spend money on players, and that's a huge issue too. So I think if anything can kind of push teams to be more competitive, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, and who knows if it ultimately would encourage teams to be more competitive, to maybe you're not going to be one of those top tier teams, but if you could make it in there as a 13th or a 14th overall seed, then maybe that would encourage some teams. Then again, like Brad's saying, why should these bad teams be allowed to get in? Maybe it's just going to encourage more mediocrity because they know sometimes we could slime our way into the playoffs and get a share of some playoff revenue. It's a dangerous slope, and I can see why the players don't want that. They don't want to encourage more mediocrity in the sport because, like you alluded to, there are teams out there like the Pittsburgh Pirates and many others like them that have had the opportunities to have great players, great teams, but then they always squander them off. Look at the Miami Marlins. They had Christian Yelich and Giancarlo Stanton on the same team and let both of them leave. That there's a lot going on in these small market teams where they have the talent, they just don't know how to keep it. They
Right.
can't keep it, and they are constantly at the bottom of their divisions. And players don't want that. And I know, and I see like the owners, they want that because they could get a share of that revenue. Players don't want that because that means that some of these star players are, playing on these crap teams who aren't going to let them go off to greener pastures. It is a wild situation. And this CBA, we've known about how crappy this is going to be for a long time. Whenever the 2020 pandemic happened and the season was shortened and all that stuff, we were like, oh, this is just a precursor to what's going to happen at the CBA. And here we are, and it looks like we're headed to Strikes Town.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's sad to see, because I think they had plenty of time to do something about it. And like Brad said a little bit earlier, they had plenty of time to talk. And the owners like to say that, implementing the lockout was a way of forcing, what did they say? Forcing the talk. I can't remember the verbiage they used, but that's funny that they used that. But meanwhile, in reality, they didn't meet for like 40 something days after that lockout. So I don't think you can use that as an excuse. I think that was just the bit of power that owners could have and say, yeah, we're locking out, because there was no negotiations till maybe a month ago or something. And it's all been kind of just BS negotiations up until pretty recently. Like there for a while, they were meeting for 15 minutes, for 30 minutes or whatever. And like, that's just, I don't know. That's a waste of time, in my opinion. If you're trying to hash something out, then it takes time. You have to sit down and go through scenarios. You can't just say, well, we want this and you want that, and we're not moving. Bye. Like, that's just not the way that business is handled. And I think, unfortunately, this is the product of that crappy negotiating. And I remember the owners tried to get some sort of federal, like, mediation or something involved, which maybe that would have helped, but I still don't think that was necessary. I think this could easily have been handled months ago, but the owners don't want to back down. The players don't want to back down. It sucks. And that's just that's not gonna fly. Like, if that's the case, then we won't have baseball this year. That's just plain and simple.
Yeah. Now, I saw an interesting tweet earlier. I can't remember who tweeted it, but it brought up a good point. If you're a player, are you willing to sacrifice, the time into this season, maybe a month, 2, 3 months of pay to shore up and make sure that the game is taken care of for years to come? Are you willing to take that sacrifice now and stay hard on your issues and not give up and not give in, because you do have bargaining chips right now? Once you sign and say, yep, we're good with this, then all of that leverage and all of that power is back in the owner's, possession, and the players have to wait until the next CBA so they can try to get something back. Mm-hmm. So as a player, are you willing to wait them out?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that's something to consider. Another thing to consider is that not everybody has those means to wait it out. I would assume that these CBAs also affect the minor leaguers and how they get paid and how they get, brought up through the system. So if you're one of the younger guys and you're waiting around to get told, yeah, we can go play and you can start getting paid, how long do you have to wait? How long can you wait before you have to go back home and get a job wherever is hiring? Because not everybody has the means to wait around. A lot of people like to say that MLB players are some of the highest paid people and blah, 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 and there's no salary cap and that stuff. And that might be true for a small percentage of the highest paid guys, but the majority of baseball players are the minor leaguers and the guys that are getting league minimum and guys that nobody really knows. And like we said earlier, that's not necessarily chump change, but I mean, unless you're just saving every penny, it's not like you can afford to not work. A lot of those players, I'm getting paid 600 grand, so I'm going to live like I'm getting paid 600 grand. And that's just the way it is. So I think it's a smart move to not just, give everything up just for the ability to play this year. But how long can we wait out? And plus, if we do have to miss a year, think about all the fans that are going to quit watching baseball like they did at the last strike. If we lose a lot of fans, that means we lose revenue, which means the owners don't get paid, and it all kind of circles back to the owners have to make money at this. Otherwise, there's really no sport to be had.
Billionaires are not in business to lose money, that's for sure. Brad points out, and I have actually confirmed this. I called the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, and they confirmed that the minor leagues are still on, whether the major league resolves the lockout or not. So minor league players will still have the opportunity to play and still be out there entertaining local markets, at least. But they also said, when I talked to the Jumbo Shrimp, that it may be a little different. The lockout only impacts the 40-man roster, but what they may do is, if they can't come to terms with the 40-man roster, who's to say these owners might not just start picking minor leaguers, plug and play, and basically, like I think somebody in the comments said, scab players. Think about the movie The Replacements, where they pulled in guys off the street to sell tickets to play the game. People still would watch.
Yeah, that'd be pretty wild, but I guess they could definitely do that. That's weird. I guess the way that works is that the budget for the minor leaguers is already good to go, and that really has nothing to do with major league play. So they can continue to play the minor league games, because as far as I know, the owner owns all the teams, right? In a system.
I believe so. Yeah, I believe he owns the organization.
Right. So it's weird that the owner would let his minor league players play and have to pay them, obviously, but not be getting his revenue from the major leagues. But again, if they're playing minor league games, that means that they're selling minor league tickets and all that stuff. So they're getting something going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And Brad hits a nail on the head. Minor league baseball is going to have ratings through the roof. This might be one of their best seasons. Maybe everybody that's canceling MLB TV should get the MILB TV and support the minor leagues. But
yeah, I think the real legitimate baseball fans will do that, and you've seen a lot of people tune into college baseball as well. But I think the guys that are just sports fans and they don't have football to watch and they don't have anything else to watch, so they'll catch a baseball game, I don't think they're going to go out of their way to try to tune into a minor league game or something like that. So the casuals are definitely going to just move on from baseball, I think.
Sure, especially with the new U.S. football league that's going to be coming around, and if and when XFL gets going, that'll steal a lot of casual eyes. What did you think about the news about Derek Jeter and the Miami Marlins mutually going separate ways, and Derek Jeter is stepping down as what was he, the president of baseball operations or whatever it was?
Yeah, whatever stupid title they want to give him. Once I kind of read into it and saw what the underlying issue was, I guess it makes a lot of sense. Basically, it seems like, and obviously this is all just kind of speculation from people who are on the inside or whatever. Jeter had an idea for the team's future, and I would assume that includes spending money on good players, which the Marlins obviously don't do, like we've talked about. And I would assume that ownership and people like that were saying, no, we can't spend the money that you want to spend. So Jeter said, okay, then I have no reason to be here, and I'm going to move on. And they said, that's great. We're going to keep our money and keep farming out all of our good players. And I think that's just another example of those teams, like we've mentioned, year in and year out, they just never move the needle when it comes to that kind of stuff. And I think it's a really bad look for Major League Baseball as a whole. And if I was one of the owners that spends a good amount of money to have a good team, I would have a chip on my shoulder towards those other owners that just cut every good player, trade every good player. And I don't think it's a good look at all. And I don't know if Jeter had a master plan, or if it would have even worked out. But if you're not even going to try to be competitive and not even going to, attempt to sign good players, what's the point of having a team at all anyway?
Because they still make money.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's why we're in the situation we are now.
The thing is these owners of the Pirates, the Marlins, the you name it, the Detroit Tigers, who aren't really that good anymore. You name it.
Reds, Guardians. There's so many teams that never.
The Guardians.
Yep.
I can't
Guardians.
get used to that one yet. The Orioles,
Yeah.
teams like that, they still rake in the revenue. They got ticket sales, they've got concessions, they've got merchandise, they've got TV rights, which is the big one for all of them. And they just rake in the money. And by not spending a lot of money to put the players on the field, that increases their profits. They have more overhead or less overhead, or however the business term would structure it to where they get more money. They don't have to spend as much money, but they're still collecting all of your dollars. Billionaires aren't losing money. That's for sure.
No, absolutely not. And what's funny is I think there was a couple owners, and I know Bill DeWitt, who is the Cardinals owner, came out and said that this business isn't very lucrative. And I think the Braves owner also came out and said that. And one of the people on Twitter conjured up the Braves earnings. And it was, the guy was making millions and millions and millions of dollars. And I can't imagine that the Cardinals system doesn't make as much. That's what a crazy thing to say. I guess when you're talking about billions versus millions, yeah, sure, you're not going to make billions off of this endeavor, but it's not like he's losing money. Like we've said, there's not an owner out there that's losing money. Otherwise, they wouldn't be an owner of the team.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm so fed up with we're working at it. We're trying to get there, and then every day that passes, there's still nothing. And now we're at literally the last hours before it's officially delaying opening day, and there's no sense of urgency. Coming up through the military ranks and stuff like that, that was a phrase that we heard a lot. Move with a sense of urgency, have purpose to your actions. It doesn't seem like MLB is acting like this is important to them.
No, not in this world. And honestly, I kind of think that this is part of the plan a little bit. I think owners would not be mad at the fact they don't have to play a month, that first month of baseball, because I think they would save a ton of money if they didn't have to play that first month of baseball. And maybe this is just part of that idea to get to the playoffs, because that's all they really care about, like we've said before. So maybe this is just part of their scheme,
I like this quote by Jeff Passan here, who said on the state of the MLB lockout that if you went and got the next 1,200 best players in the world, the product would suffer greatly. That's how good these players are at the major league level. But if you handed these MLB teams over to any 30 competent business people, the sport would not suffer at all. Actually, it might improve.
Yeah.
That goes to show, even some of the top baseball writers out there, they feel like these owners are the ones that are really sticking their
I think we all know that to be true. And I would love to see what Mark Cuban could do if he owned the Texas Rangers. Famously, Mark Cuban bought the Mavericks, and they went on to win a couple finals, and it made a relatively good team. And I think that's what you want out of an owner. You want him to be aggressive. You want him to be in it for the right reasons. We want these teams to be as successful as possible. That's why people watch sports. That's why you're a fan of your team, so that you can see them succeed. Orioles fans don't want to see their team lose every year. They have hope that maybe one day they'll get a winning team. And it's just, when there's no chance of that, it really does turn a lot of people off. And that, I think that's why you see a lot of people not really care about baseball anymore, is because there's just so many markets that never really put up what it takes to win. And in baseball's case, at least for right now, basically the two ways you can compete and make it to a World Series is if you have a really great farm system, or if you have the funds and the means to acquire really good free agents or make trades. And that's really all it comes down to.
Yep. And if they expand the playoffs, that just makes it easier for some of those mediocre teams to get in there, get hot at the right time, and possibly win it all.
Right.
I mean, I feel like we're just kind of going in circles here, beating a dead horse with this MLB news. Unless there's some breaking news that happens in the next few minutes, I think we should just move on from Major League Baseball and talk about anything else that might be going on in the sporting world.
Sure.
Well, one thing that I know that is going on is this Wednesday there is a certain race that is going to be taking place that bears our name. And Zach, I think you can let the listeners know a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. Let me tell you about Elite Racing League. So Elite Racing League is a sim racing organization on iRacing. They offer leagues 5 days a week from F1 to NASCAR. And you can catch all of the action on Elite Racing Network. Yeah, like you mentioned, this Wednesday, be sure to check out the Ready Break running of the Glen. And you can follow Elite Racing at Elite R Network on Twitter.
Yeah, super excited that we're part of that this year going forward. We have a car that's actually involved in some of these races, which is super cool to see. And it's been a lot of fun watching some of these sim races and just knowing that these dudes are hardcore competitive gamers.
Right.
That they have like rigs in their houses that are basically like a car that they sit in while they're racing these things. And that's pretty cool. I've enjoyed talking to our driver, Jordan Owens, and getting to know some of these guys a little bit, and definitely go check it out this Wednesday when they race the Glen.
Yeah. That's a pretty cool little idea. Not obviously not everybody can make it to the professional level of racing, but for anyone who's like a big proponent of that kind of stuff, if you can get one of these crazy basically gaming rigs, you can basically race in a virtual setting, which I think is really cool. And that just kind of shows you the way the world's going. Is a lot of stuff obviously is better in person and better to do live, but if you can't do that, the next best thing is to do it virtually.
Yep, I agree. And that is the way that this world is going. And who knows, maybe that'll be our source of entertainment this summer, is watching people play MLB The Show 22.
Right.
That might be the only way we see some of these stars on the field. I did notice one thing, and we don't really follow college basketball that closely, but this is the time of the year when college basketball heats up, and we kind of take a little bit of notice to it. But I saw that for the first time in college basketball history, the top 6 teams all lost on the same day.
Oh, wow.
Pretty wild to think about. Teams like Auburn, Kentucky, Gonzaga, all these household names for college basketball, and they all lost on the same day.
Yeah.
Pretty wild.
That is crazy. Yeah, I think if we're absent of baseball, I think the college tournament will be a pretty highly watched event, and I think that'll be fun. I've always been intrigued by the tournament because obviously it's a one and done style, and anybody can get hot at any moment, and there's always usually some upsets, and those are always fun to watch.
Yeah, it is fun whenever you get to watch some of these upsets, and then you see some of these Cinderella schools that no one's ever really heard of unless you're from that area where that is. And then they go on a little bit of a run, and everybody's cheering for that team because it's like, hey, knock off these big dogs. And then when they lose, it's like, well, crap.
Yeah.
But
Have
but
you
it's fun.
have you caught any of the college baseball?
I haven't been able to catch any of the college baseball. Have you?
I've seen some highlights, and I've
Yeah,
just
that's
seen
all I've seen.
a few clips online, which those are really entertaining in and of themselves too. Um, and that might be something that we can get into a little bit as well. For people that have ESPN Plus, that's basically the best way to catch any of those college baseball games because they're really not broadcast, on any sort of big time networks.
I know the University of Tennessee has
Oh
a
boy.
lot of talent out there.
Oh boy, do they? They have a pitcher that is just, I mean, we earlier we were talking about the owners might just pluck people to come play for him. This guy is recruit number one right here.
He might just be
Throwing
uh
103. I mean,
yeah, that dude's a reliever, but they also have that starter that we showcased last week where he was just painting the black all over the place. Um, Tennessee right now is 7-0. They're undefeated in college baseball, so pretty awesome. They're ranked 17th in the country, and I see good things coming out of that squad. I know recently they beat. I'm trying to find who it was that they beat. I think it was Iona, however you pronounce it. They beat them like 29-1. Like
nice.
they just absolutely beat the brakes off of them. So
Yeah, that's crazy.
yeah, so I really don't know what else to talk about, Zach. We're kind of in that weird place where baseball's not happening, football's over. We can't really start talking about our fantasy football rankings. We can't really start talking about stuff like that just yet.
Right.
We got to at least wait until we get through the NFL draft
Right.
before we can start scouting that kind of stuff out because we don't know who's going to be replacing who. We don't really know what's going to happen on the free agent front. We don't know
Yep.
what's going to happen in the trade. So there's some question marks for football. So where do we go from here? What do we talk about?
It's a great question. I really wish we had something, but it's just we're at the mercy of the negotiations in MLB. I mean, that's kind of what we've been about for the longevity of this show. Is we're football fans, baseball fans, and UFC fans, really. And other than that, I haven't caught a single basketball game this year. I've maybe watched a half of a hockey game here and there, but I just can't get into those sports. And whenever one of our favorite sports is missing, it really throws a wrench in our gears.
It really does. I mean, we could talk about shows that we like to watch. We could talk about something like that, but I'm not so sure our sports fans are going to want to hear us talk about,
Right.
the TV shows that we enjoy watching. So I say, in the interest of saving face, we just go ahead and call it quits on tonight, and we hope that we have some good news coming for you next week because this week it's kind of nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Much like all baseball fans around the world, we're just sitting here waiting for something. And all we've gotten, like we said at the beginning of the show, is that they're working on it. So I hope they're working real hard on it because we're all just sitting here waiting.
Yep. So tune back in next week. Hopefully, we have some more news to discuss and to dissect, and we'll try to bring you something more positive next week. If we have no news from baseball, we'll have to get creative and come up with something. But we're hoping for some actual news to be able to discuss. So until then, have a good week. Ready, break.